G'day, I'm Petey. Welcome to thumbpump.com. Today we're going to look at Paul Smith's 2010 Australasian Safari winning rally bike. For 2010, Paul chose to ride a Honda TRX700XX in the Australasian Safari. Not a particularly common rally bike. They're growing in popularity for this sort of event. They're an IRS suspension and they've got a big solid motor in them that makes them good for this kind of race. So we're going to have a look now at building one from the ground up. Smitty has a sponsorship deal with Kenda for tyres, which is great. It means we get tyres as soon as they come out. Kenda released a Cutter XC in an 11-inch rear, which is the perfect size to suit Honda's odd size 11-inch rear wheel. Because Honda have an 11-inch rear wheel, there's only one company that makes an aftermarket rear wheel for them, which is OMF. So we had to go and source some OMF wheels because of the availability here. We had to get some from Hustler ATV and some from Legend Quad Services in Perth. Another thing we got from Legend Quads were tyre balls. Tyre balls basically a flat prevention system. Although don't be fooled into thinking they'll completely stop your flat tyres. We've still got plenty of punctures, but they let you keep running on the tyre while it's got no air in it. With the front wheels and tyres, we have a similar combination, an OMF wheel again with a Kenda on it, the Parker DTs on the front, which we run in a 23-inch size to help give extra ground clearance. For front suspension, Paul wanted to go with a roll design front end and also his usual choice for shocks, which is Fox floats. The floats came from Hardyman ATV. And Paul's been running floats on his off-road bikes for the last 5 years. The one notable thing is that they tend to last a bit longer than some of the other brands. We didn't have any suspension failures at all during the Safari. In the rear of the quad, we have a matching set of rear shocks in Podium X's, which have been modified for this kind of racing. Also, there is a set of wheel spacers to bring the rear of the quad out to the same width as the front. The last thing in suspension components, down the front of the bike there's an Elka System 3 steering damper buried right down under the front cover, and also a precision shock and vibe clamp mounted on the top of the steering stem. The precision shock and vibe clamp, which we got from Hardyman ATV, is a suspension component in its own right. It allows the handlebars to move underneath you, soaking up a lot of the big hits and bumps, allowing the riders to do the long days without too much fatigue. While we're at the top of the bike here, let's have a look at the handlebars. The Pro Taper ATV high bend. It's the highest bend you can get in this style of handlebar. Coupled with the steering stem, which has been modified and lengthened by 50mm, the combination of which gives you a good standing position on the bike. Even though we've got a Quad-Tech seat with a high foam in it, you still spend a lot of time standing up, being able to control the bike through the rough sections. The Nerfs and bumper also came from Hardyman ATV. They're a Shepherd Customs brand, which is now known as Moto Active. These Nerf bars are pretty gutsy. They've got big steel foot peg on them and a nice big aluminium heel guard, nice and solid. The bumpers, however, needed a little bit of modification to make them smithy proof, as he does have a habit of running into trees. You would think finding a pipe to use for this sort of bike would be easy. We've had a lot of trouble with alloy pipes over the years, especially at Safari. We had some bad experiences with some alloy exhausts on Renegades a few years ago. So we went to using stain tune pipes, which are a full stainless system. They don't have a tendency to rattle apart. So even though stain tune don't make a pipe for this model, we've got a hold of one and modified it to suit. Something else that you can't see in here is the double gusseting on the exhaust mounts, which we found needed a bit of extra help to stay up after a few days at Safari. On the other side of the engine, we've got a Pro Design ProFlow filter kit in the standard airbox, which is feeding into a ported head. The head porting is the only modification that we made to the engine, because we wanted to keep the Honda's reliability for the 7-day event. This is helped partly also by using Bellray oils in regular oil changes throughout the event. To go with our air filter and exhaust modifications, we're also running a Vortex X10 ECU. Vortex is a fully programmable fuel controller as well as an adjustable ignition module, and helps make a fairly big difference to the power delivery of the bike with or without any major engine modifications. Vortex is also made in Australia. For an event like Safari, you need to carry a lot of fuel on your bike, enough to do 300 k's in fact. So we've put a IMS 18 litre top tank on the 700. We've also had a couple of tanks custom made. These little guys here hold 11 litres each. There's one on each side. They're made by Lee Giblin Motorsports in Victoria. Lee makes a lot of stuff for speedway cars. They're a pretty strong tank, which they need to be with Smith steering. So with the fuel transfer pump, as Smithy sees the fuel getting low in the top fuel tank, he can just flick a switch here on the dashboard, turns the fuel pump on, transfers the fuel up from the bottom tanks into the top. Up the front of the bike, we've got a custom-made carbon fibre screen. Smitty wanted to keep the look of the bike as much as he could like a standard Honda, so we had a mould taken off the standard front guard and then the screen tower added to the standard front guard shape, and all made out of carbon fibre, nice and light, nice and strong. Sitting right behind the carbon fibre screen is all the nav gear. We've got an MD map roller and also an ICO trip computer. That's all sitting on top of a custom-made bracket that mounts from the chassis up through in front of the fuel tank, and also is what the carbon fibre guard's mounted to. Underneath the map roller, we've got a custom dashboard which has got all the warning lights for the engine, also the switches for controlling the fuel pump, the ignition switch and the horn switch and the indicator switch, as all the rally bikes need to have standard lights on them like a road bike, so they've got indicators and tail lights and brake lights. And also the lanyard kill switch is mounted up here on the dashboard. Over on the left we've got all the standard switches for the 700's own controls, plus we've got the switch block for the ICO for its adjustment and also the switch for the map roller. On the right hand side we've got the control switch for the Vortex ECU to switch between maps. So as you can see, the bike looks to be in pretty good condition considering what it's just been through, being the longest off-road race in Australia. That's mostly due to the preventative maintenance we do during and after the event with CRC products. So that's it for Paul Smith's TRX700XX. We're now about to strip her down and do an engine rebuild and start getting it ready for the Condo 750 at Easter.